Welcome to the ProTicker Deep Dive. Today we are diving into a story that has the entire tech world, well, holding its breath. We're talking about Intel's new Core Ultra Series 3 processors, codenamed Panther Lake.
Hmm.
And if you follow the semiconductor world at all, you know this is not just another chip launch. This feels like Intel's moment of reckoning.
It genuinely is. I mean, for years, Intel has faced relentless pressure-losing market share, really struggling with manufacturing schedules, and just watching competitors like TSMC define the cutting edge. But at CES 2026, they unveiled Panther Lake, and the stakes are astronomical. This is the very first consumer chip built entirely on their revolutionary 18A manufacturing process.
And the whole production chain is happening right here in the US.
Exactly.
We know this chip is slated to ship starting late January 2026, and it's already locked into over 200 laptop designs from major OEMs. The market is absolutely betting on this to be Intel's true comeback. So the question we need to answer in this deep dive is pretty simple. Can the brilliance of the engineering overcome the brutal challenges of actually making the thing?
That is the core tension. Our sources are all unanimous on this. It is Intel's most strategically important product launch in over a decade. It's not just about winning back PC market share, it's about proving they can once again compete in process technology on a global scale.
And the fact that this entire chip built on 18A is domestically manufactured in new American fabs like Arizona's Fab 52, that changes the game.
It does. It elevates it from just a product launch to a strategic geopolitical asset. It's so much bigger than just processor speed.
Okay, let's focus on that bigger picture first.
Okay.
Why is 2026 such an inflection point for the semiconductor world, and why does Panther Lake land at this perfect but also maybe the most dangerous time?
It's a collision of three massive forces. You have technological demand, government policy, and, process competition all hitting at the exact same moment.
Let's start with that technological demand, which, yeah, everyone seems to agree is driving this next big cycle.
That's force one. AI everywhere. The PC market had a pretty sluggish decade, right? Innovation mostly stalled. Now, the explosion of generative AI has fundamentally shifted what we need from our computers. Suddenly, the ability to process AI workloads on the device.
Local inference, running models.
Exactly. Creative tasks. It's mandatory now, not just a nice to have. And Intel packing these powerful AI accelerators into Panther Lake is their direct answer to this huge sudden demand for the AI PC.
And that leads directly into the policy side of things, the whole Made in USA push.
That's force two, the geopolitical landscape. The U.S. government, fueled by the GPS Act, is pouring billions into reshoring manufacturing. They're trying to de-risk the supply chain, especially from the concentration in Asia. And Intel is really the only major American designer that still controls its own advanced domestic fabs.
So Panther Lake, being built entirely in those facilities, it just becomes a key component in national security and industrial policy.
It becomes a strategic asset that the U.S. government wants to succeed. That's a huge sort of intangible competitive advantage.
So they get a certain level of government buy-in and market preference just by being built here. So what's the third force?
That's the competitive landscape. Process technology as a battleground. For years, Intel just struggled to get their most advanced nodes online. They let TSMC and Samsung pull way ahead in that sub-5 nanometer race. 18A is Intel's attempt to leapfrog them, to show the world and potential foundry customers that they can innovate at the physical limit of silicon again.
So if 18A works?
If 18A proves to be stable and high performance, it validates Intel's entire foundry strategy. The timing where corporate refreshes are due and AI budgets are exploding, it's genuinely perfect if they can execute.
Okay, let's talk about that execution, specifically the hardware. This is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Let's look at the silicon itself and those, frankly, astonishing performance claims. Tell us about the architecture.
The architecture is, well, it's highly complex, and that reflects the need to manage power extremely efficiently while still offering these massive bursts of speed. We're looking at a chiplet-based heterogeneous design. For the top skews the Core Ultra X9 and X7.
So multiple little chips working together.
Right. You have up to 16 CPU cores total, split into 4 high-performance P cores, 8 high-efficiency E cores, and then something totally unique. 4 low-power E cores on their own isolated power island. This blend is all about efficiency.
Okay, let's talk raw numbers. Intel is claiming 60% better multi-thread performance compared to Lunar Lake. But hold on, Lunar Lake had a much lower core count, didn't it? Isn't that just cheating the math?
That's a crucial point, and yes, you're right to be skeptical. Increasing the core count from Lunar Lake's max of 8 to Panther Lake's 16, that accounts for a huge chunk of that 60% gain.
It's just more engines.
It's just more physical cores. The real metric you, the listener, should care about is the performance per watt improvement on the individual cores. That's a much harder engineering challenge.
And what does that look like?
So, the single-threaded performance boost, which isolates those core architecture improvements, is a more modest but still very respectable 10% improvement at the same power envelope. That 10% gain comes from architectural refinements, the move to 18A, better power delivery, but where they truly leapfrog is in the AI compute power.
That's what everyone wants to know about. They're boasting these huge TOPS numbers. What does that actually mean in practical terms?
TOPS stands for tera operations per second. Trillions of calculations every second. The integrated Arc GPU provides a stunning 120 TOPS specifically for AI workloads.
120.
And then the dedicated neural processing unit, the NPU, adds another 50 TOPS. That's a combined 170 TOPS of pure AI compute without even having to fire up the power-hungry main CPU cores.
So to put that in perspective for everyone, that's like performing 170 trillion calculations every single second. Why is dedicating the NPU and GPU to this so important?
Because it's all about power efficiency and running local models. If you're running a local LLM, generating images, using advanced editing software, you need that specialized horsepower. Doing it on the GPU and NPU uses far, far less energy than running it on the main CPU. That offers genuine, tangible value for creators and people who want to keep their data local.
And the gaming claims are just as aggressive. 77% faster gaming versus Lunar Lake. Again, are there caveats there?
There are, but the overall message is strong. That 77% figure, it does rely on using AI upscaling technology, specifically XSS running at 1080p. But, it signals that Intel's integrated Arc graphics are now seriously competitive. They're gaining ground fast on the integrated graphics prowess that AMD has held for so long.
And what about that staggering battery life claim? Up to 27 hours for the top SKUs. How do they perform that magic trick?
It's the genius of that heterogeneous design, especially those 4 low-power E-cores on their own little island. Think of it this way. Instead of running a V8 engine for basic tasks like checking email or watching Netflix, they've installed a tiny watch battery connected to a scooter engine.
I like that.
The main powerful CPU tile runs at a much lower base power, 25 watts. That's way lower than the 45 to 65 watts of previous generations. Those little low-power E-cores handle 90% of your daily computing, letting the big performance cores basically sleep until you absolutely need them.
So the architecture enables the performance, but the real engineering marvel is the 18A manufacturing process that makes it all possible. Let's break down the technical breakthroughs of 18A itself.
Sure.
This is what buys Intel its credibility back.
Absolutely. 18A is a 3-pronged revolution. They're integrating major changes simultaneously that no manufacturer has ever tried to put together all at once.
The first one is RibbonFET.
RibbonFET is Intel's version of the gate all-around transistor. So instead of the older FinFET design, where the gate only contacts 3 sides of the transistor channel.
The old way.
Exactly, the old way. RibbonFET wraps the gate completely around the channel, like a ribbon. This gives engineers vastly better control over the flow of current.
And the benefit there is?
Less leakage. It reduces current leakage and provides much greater flexibility in managing power and clock speed. Less leakage means less wasted energy and better efficiency. Simple as that.
And the second component, which, this truly sounds like science fiction, PowerVia.
PowerVia is a radical redesign. They're moving the entire power delivery network to the back of the wafer. It's called backside power delivery.
So underneath the chip, essentially.
Right. Historically, power lines and signal lines shared the same space on the front of the chip, which creates all sorts of electrical interference and, congestion. By putting the power lines on the back, they completely clear the way for signal routing on the front. This improves power efficiency drastically. You get less resistance, less power loss, and you free up crucial metal layers for signals.
So they combine the new transistor type, RibbonFET, with the backside power, PowerVia. What's the net result? What do you get in terms of density and power savings?
The results are astounding. The die shrink from their previous Intel 3 process to 18A gives you a 30% higher transistor density. But the power efficiency gains are the real story. 10% better performance per watt on single-threaded tasks, and a massive 50% improvement on multi-threaded tasks compared to Intel 3. The design goal they achieved is basically to deliver the raw power of their massive flagship desktop chips like Arrow Lake H, but with the power efficiency of the ultra-thin mobile chips Lunar Lake.
That is a staggering technical achievement. It proves they are back in the manufacturing innovation race.
Yeah.
But now we have to face reality. Intel is not operating in a vacuum. Let's shift gears to the competition and the execution risk.
This is the critical reality check. On the CPU side, the main competition is AMD. Their next generation, Zen 6 mobile chips expected in the Ryzen 9000 series are already rumored to deliver up to 30% higher per core performance. That is a substantial challenge.
Wow. If that rumor holds true, AMD is going to be competing aggressively on raw CPU horsepower and could push ahead in multi-threaded workloads again.
They will, and AMD also has a massive competitive advantage right now. Their chips are made by TSMC. TSMC offers mature, predictable, high-yielding N2 process technology.
So AMD can project costs and supply with a lot more certainty than Intel can right now.
Much greater certainty. However, Intel's integrated ARC graphics, with that 170 TOPS AI capability, still holds a noticeable integrated graphics advantage over what AMD is currently showing.
And what about NVIDIA, the AI heavyweight?
NVIDIA remains totally unchallenged in high-end, serious AI workloads, particularly the training phase in data centers. Panther Lake isn't competing there. It targets inference and edge AI computing. It offers a vastly lower total cost of ownership TCO for companies and users who need local AI but don't want to buy a separate CPU and a discrete high-end graphics card. It's a different battleground.
Okay, now for the elephant in the room, the Achilles heel of this entire launch, the manufacturing yields of 18A. How real is this financial risk?
The risk is immense. It is the single greatest determinant of Intel's stock and their future profitability. According to internal reports our sources cited, during risk production, the defect densities for 18A were reportedly 3 times higher than acceptable benchmarks.
3 times higher. Okay, for the listener who doesn't work in a fab, what does a 3x defect rate actually mean for the bottom line?
It means 2 things. First, the cost to produce those early chips is astronomical. I mean, if only 1 in 3 chips is usable, Intel is essentially lighting money on fire to get product out the door.
Cinco.
It means initial shipments are going to be severely volume constrained. They'll have to prioritize the smaller, high-end SKUs, which naturally have slightly better yields than the huge, complex chips.
And that scarcity means thin margins and probably frustrating their big OEM partners early on.
Absolutely.
So when does Intel predict they'll stabilize the ship? When do they start making real money on 18A?
They have provided pretty clear guidance on this. They don't expect to reach desired cost levels where the margins are actually acceptable until the end of 2026. And they don't anticipate hitting industry standard yields, which is, 70% or better for a mature process, until late 2027.
That's a full 20 months of operating at higher costs and lower volumes than their competitors.
It's a long, long time.
A long time for a comeback story to play out. And yet, despite these brutal yield realities, INTC stocks surged 8% on the launch news. Analysts are upgrading. Why is there so much optimism?
Because the payoff is just so large if they succeed. The sheer technical proof that 18A works is enough to justify a short-term rally. And the signal from the market is strong. 200-plus designs announced by Acer, Asus, HP that validates that the demand for the AI PC is real. The market believes this technical achievement, even if it's painful to manufacture now, unlocks massive future opportunities, especially in foundry services where the potential for external clients like, the ever-present Apple rumors could be transformative.
All right, let's lay out the final decision tree for the listener who is thinking about buying a new laptop or maybe monitoring the stock. What's the definitive bull case for Panther Lake?
First, the AI PC advantage is huge. That 170 TOPS is a legitimate 12 to 18-month lead in local inference capability. Competitors are scrambling to match that. Second, foundry upside. If 18A stabilizes, capturing even a fraction of the external manufacturing market, say 5% to 10%, it instantly transforms Intel's long-term financial structure. Third, the gaming tailwinds are real. That dedicated Core G3 custom variant is positioned perfectly for the exploding handheld gaming PC market. That's high-margin business.
And fourth, we can't ignore that strategic geopolitical support. Having the U.S. government incentivize or prefer domestically made chips, maybe through contracts or tariffs, provides a powerful hidden revenue floor.
Now for the counterbalance, the bear case. The execution risks that matter most. First, yield ramps are unpredictable. Any further slip on that 2027 yield goal, especially with the complexity of Ribbon FET and PowerVia, delays profitability and risks shattering investor confidence.
And if those early supply constraints drag on, they create a huge problem for their partners.
That's the second point, supply frustration. If Intel can't meet the volume demand from those 200-plus OEM designs through mid-2026, those partners will inevitably shift their design wins to AMD, who can deliver predictable supply. And third, competitive pressure. AMD's Zen 6 is a massive threat. If AMD can match or beat the CPU performance using TSMC's stable N2 process, Intel is left fighting with high internal costs and razor-thin margins.
So the valuation gap we see right now, that reflects this massive inherent risk.
It does. INTC currently trades at 4 to 5 times forward earnings. That's nearly half the typical industry average of 8 to 10 times. The market is precisely pricing in this 50-50 bet. Success hitting those yield goals perfectly could push the stock north of $40–45, but failure or significant delays could send it right back down to the $25 to $30 range.
The technical innovation is proven. The financial outcome depends entirely on flawless manufacturing execution for the next 2 years.
That's the whole story.
So the ultimate conclusion here is that Panther Lake is a technical marvel. It buys Intel time, credibility, and the right to compete at the absolute cutting edge again.
That's right. It proves that Intel is back in the innovation game at the process level. 18A is a tangible, real technology.
But the critical caveat remains. This is not a silver bullet. The hardest work, the volume, the profitability, the margin expansion, that all starts now and runs straight through 2027.
But they delivered the product. Now they have to deliver the process.
That's a fantastic synthesis of the risk and reward. For you, the listener, here's a final thought to mull over. The real engineering marvel of 18A isn't just the performance gain. It's that simultaneous integration of two revolutionary technologies, RibbonFET and PowerVia. Considering the early complexity and that 3x defect rate, what seemingly minor manufacturing detail, the interaction between the backside power lines and the topside gates, or maybe a specific type of clustered defect, do you think will be the one thing that ultimately determines whether Intel hits that ambitious late 2027 yield goal? See you all in the next Bro Ticker Deep Dive.